News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan.
Welcome to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
I'm Alan Gilbreth, darkhookmedia.com.
And I'm Maximilian, and if you can't take the heat, stay out of the kitchen, because today I'd like to wish you all a very happy National Teflon Day.
Teflon, okay. I sort of know what Teflon is. It keeps things from sticking. Is that right?
Teflon is proof you never throw out an experiment that went wrong.
like penicillin.
Actually, Teflon was discovered because it was the not sticky stuff left over in the bottom of the test tube.
Why do I feel like we have a discussion coming about Teflon, Max? Yeah.
Excuse me.
Okay, cool. National Teflon Day. Or is it international?
National.
Okay, so what? The rest of the world is not going to acknowledge Teflon today?
Or maybe the U.S. just has an elite market on Teflon.
Okay, all right. I'm guessing it probably can't. Anyway, all right, so I have a feeling Max is going to unpack that a little bit later. Am I correct in that, Max? Okay.
Hey, you never know.
Okay, well, today's going to be very interesting, Al. We have so if you don't know, I don't know how you can't know, but if you live here in the Mid-South, if you live anywhere in the country, but especially here, because coming up Monday, it's the solar eclipse we've been waiting for. Now, here in Memphis, it's going to be what, about 90-something%?
We're somewhere between 90 and 95%. So we're going to get dark.
Okay, but if you want to really go after it and get the full experience and see the 100% coverage, you only got to drive about an hour into Arkansas. Apparently, Arkansas is going to get overrun.
Arkansas is overrun.
Yeah.
Now, there's no going to be. It is.
Weather dependent. I don't know. But anyway, in honor of all of that, for our great moments in building history, we're going to discuss the world's oldest planetarium. It went back farther than I thought, Alan. It's, I should say, the world's oldest working planetarium.
Okay.
This thing's pre-electricity, 1781, the Eisinga Planetarium in Holland. It's pretty interesting. The guy, we're going to talk about Eisinga. He's an interesting guy. So
well, and the fact that he converted his house.
Well, spoiler, yeah, exactly. So we've got that. Alan's Week in Review is also a partial on-air confession. Am I correct, Alan?
Well, it could be.
Okay. It's hard.
It's an acknowledgement.
It's hard to get Alan to confess to things. This will be interesting. This is going to be fun, I think. For our tool tales, Max, get this. We're going to talk about the sounds of tools and maybe some of the most irritating sounds, some of the most satisfying sounds, how that plays a role in home improvement, and Alan made a good point, the evolution of the sound of the construction site. So
can there be like psychological warfare with regards to like the sounds that you use on a job site? It's like, someone's breaking out the chainsaw.
You got that exactly right, Max.
Yeah.
There's some sounds that you almost get the idea that they're doing that on purpose. So I thought that was a worthy conversation. We have a lot. We have our must-have item of the week, and also. Later in the show, we've got our friend Jeremy Veldman dropping in from the Memphis Astronomical Society. He's going to take part in our discussion about the planetarium, but also maybe give us some tips because he's not kidding when it comes to solar eclipses. He is out there trying to get the full experience, so he'll help us, give us some tips if you want to go.
Yeah, he is a little, how do we say, astronomically involved.
Oh, he is, yeah.
He is serious about it.
Great dude. So, but Max, you brought this up, so I feel like we ought to throw it to you.
Well, thank you. Well, This day obviously honors the creation of Teflon, which is a synthetic polymer which was discovered by a man by the name of Roy Plunkett in 1938.
Sounds like a football player. Okay.
Yeah, you got to be careful how you say his name on the air.
Okay. Well, thanks, Max. Okay.
Roy
Plunkett.
Okay. He discovered this while he was trying to research refrigerant gases.
Okay.
And he was doing a big project for the DuPont Corporation.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were the people who eventually began the full-scale production of said Teflon. And the French engineer there's a French engineer by the name of Marc Gregoire who launched the brand Tefal, which combined Teflon and aluminum. And that marked the beginning of nonstick cookware.
Okay. Hang on. Many questions emerge. So is Teflon... Okay, so we're talking the 1920s, 1930s this was going on?
You're talking research in this began in the early 1930s as a part of the basically burgeoning air conditioning industry.
Okay, but Teflon I always think of as like a coating. So what were they trying to coat? Were they trying to coat?
They weren't trying to coat anything.
Well, what
That's
were they
the
making?
point.
You said it was an accidental discovery.
Exactly. What they were doing was combining a variety of different tetrafluorines.
Which is a what?
Which is...
You're using a lot of big words, Alan.
Well, it's a tetrafluorine is of... they were trying different combinations to see what would work. So one of the big things that came out of these experiments was stuff like R22 refrigerant.
Mm-hmm.
So different refrigerants and different coatings and safety seals for the air conditioning industry. And after an experiment didn't actually work, they were going to go clean up, and lo and behold, there was a residue. And what had happened is they had created a polytetrafluorine that had coated the inside of the vessel that was very slick, and you couldn't scrub it off, and it was very, very slippery. And that is when somebody had the, you'll call it the aha moment, and went, hey, this isn't bad stuff.
Right.
And
if you want to know the actual name of Teflon, it's polytetrafluoroethylene, or
Okay.
PTFE.
That's not terrible. That's not a bad one. Doesn't roll off the tongue, but it's pretty good. So
It's better than most of them.
And then, so wait a minute. Is this one where they say, okay, we're scrapping this line of research and we're going to go down this line? Or did this just start a whole new, I don't know what?
well, actually, DuPont eventually spins the Teflon production side of the company off as a company called Chemours.
Okay.
So that's basically it. They didn't stop researching what they were researching, but they certainly grabbed this new product and went, all right, guys, we're opening up a whole new factory because this is what we're going to make over here.
So Teflon, okay, because I could have sworn there was a period where people were saying be careful with cooking on Teflon or something. Is it?
That's kind of a myth. The idea of Teflon not being a safe cooking thing to cook on.
Okay.
That's what I heard. Because they said the idea this means they said one of the biggest reasons never mind. That's not what I was thinking of. It says Teflon is safe for cooking. It has been extensively tested and found not to pose any health risks to humans.
Huh. Isn't that something? Because we've talked about in the past, isn't that, fiberglass insulation was an accidental discovery. I mean, some of these chemists, it's like, I mean, you're just playing. See, I guess what I'm thinking of is if you're the one out there inventing Teflon, boy, you better be careful. Breathe. I mean, I hope they were wearing gas masks and everything. Could you? I don't think that could be good for your lungs, having a Teflon coating in there or something.
Well,
like that.
I don't think that would be good either.
Okay.
So this is why certain research facilities have invented more stuff than others, and DuPont is just a DuPont and Minnesota Mining.
Yeah.
Two companies that were that are basically still in competition today. And when you get in that era from about 1910 to about 1940, you have a dramatic amount of discoveries, inventions, combinations. Now, the one thing that has definitely changed and improved over Teflon over the last 50, 60 years is the adhesion process to cooking surfaces or anything else that's coated in Teflon, because Teflon is also used very heavily throughout the medical industry.
Oh, yeah.
And
Because you don't want stuff sticking to it.
And it's even used in clothing.
Clothing, okay, that doesn't sound like Devo or those guys in the 80s or something.
It has waterproof and oil repellent properties, and so it's used in many clothing items, especially those meant for like outdoor use or extreme weather conditions.
Huh. I could see firefighters having something like that on their right.
And to kind of come full circle, Joe,
yeah,
it was also used during the Apollo missions back in 1961.
Okay, that's
because
what
of
I
its
was
heat
wondering.
shields and its high heat resistance.
So what were they doing with that, Alan? Were they putting that on the front end of the?
They're putting
of
it on the
ship?
tiles.
Okay.
Yeah, they were using
Teflon
it
coated, and it could handle the coming back into the
and it
atmosphere.
also
and-
provided much less resistance.
yeah, it's very slick.
It's very slick, whether that's air molecules or your fingertips. It would glide through, thus creating less resistance and having to deal with less heat.
Do you think we could have made it to space without Teflon? Or
Yeah, we could have, but once again, we didn't have to. And you just think of when you get into the space race, we've talked about this before, the just massive amount of products that were sidekicks to solving little problems trying to get to space or even across the ocean that, we don't think about it this much, but, for the space missions back in the 60s, dehydrated foods, we don't even give that a second thought anymore.
And that's everywhere.
It's every place. You go to your health food store, and half of it's all dehydrated foods.
That's a good point.
So welcome to discoveries becoming literally everywhere.
Now, how are you going to celebrate National Teflon Day?
We all
already did.
know.
I cooked.
Okay, so Max, I don't know. What are you going to do? I mean, that's surely you're going to get out there and celebrate in some way. So
I mean, I'll probably find something that's nonstick coated and everything to celebrate.
okay, all right. Well, we'd love to know how you're going to do it. Get in. Gosh, did I give out the number? Get in touch with us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline 901-683-0989.
Sorry, before we get off the air, I just want to also let you know that speaking of Big M Roofing, it's also National J Day.
Oh, okay. Way to bury the lead, Max. We'll
Calling
unpack
all
that
J's.
when we come back here on Tool Talk Radio.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan.
All you got to do is let us disassemble you. We're not banging rocks together here. We know how to put a man back together. So that's a complete reassembly. New vitals, spit shine on the old ones. Frankly, you ought to be paying us.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
I mean, Alan gets that done annually. You got to... It's a way to stay in shape, right, man?
Well, you do what you got to do.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us today at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to watch the show on the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page and the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. And we also invite you, while you're on social media, to scoot on over to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and check out the posts we've made over there. We've got our must-have item of the week, and we've got our great moments in building history topic, which is the Eisinga Planetarium, constructed in 1781. It's going to be a pretty cool discussion that we're going to share with our buddy Jeremy Veldman from the Memphis Astronomical Society later in the show. But boy, Max, you sure buried the lead. If you're just tuning in, we got into a pretty interesting discussion about Teflon because today, as Max told us, today is National Teflon Day. But, Max, there's also another holiday that it seems like that's what you should have led with. But what is it?
I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. I don't need to really go into detail. It's National J Day.
All right. Is Jay Hill behind this?
No.
So anybody named Jay, they celebrate? I mean...
And the fact that it's such a diverse name. It's used in the Indian language, and it has a meaning of victory in Sanskrit, among other languages. It's just a very diverse name with various pronunciations and stuff like that.
All right, so if you're out there and you're celebrating National J Day, I wonder if Jay Hill's aware of this. He's probably busy working. He probably doesn't know. He doesn't realize that there's an entire celebration in his honor going on.
There we go.
And then calling all J's, please text the Big M Roofing and Remodeling text line.
Exactly. 901-683-0989. And let us know how you're celebrating. What if you're celebrating National Teflon Day and National J Day? That's what we want to know.
You go.
All right, Alan, let's see what you're up to, man.
Oh, the humanity.
So is this an on-air confession, or is this just sort of
it's going to be a cautionary tale. How about that?
It's an excuse for me to blow out everybody's eardrums.
Yep, got to have that goat scream. So,
okay.
Well, I love how different weeks get different themes.
They do.
So, some weeks it's going to be plumbing. Some weeks it's going to be toilets. This past couple of weeks has been, landscaping. Because
everything's blooming.
Everything's waking up. Everything's blooming. And a lot of places are getting their very first lawn mow.
Really? Gosh, we've been
cutting
ours for about a month.
Yeah, some, but we're still getting around to places. So some places are getting their very first lawn mow. And some of them, let's just say the backyard is a little deeper in some places than others.
Yeah.
And my cautionary tale here is lawnmowers like to throw things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, think about what a lawnmower is.
It is nothing more than a gasoline-powered engine with just basically a spinning rod sticking out of the bottom of it. And we attach a lovely chunk of metal to just spin. So, job number one was got a call with a client with a riding mower that needed new blades because at the end of the season last year, the owner hit something and either bent or broke one of the blades in there.
Oh.
So now this thing was riding like,
Probably ran over a big rock or something.
yeah, hit a tree root or something.
Okay.
And so it took about 4 of us because there really wasn't a way of doing this other than, honestly, just standing it up on its rear tires.
Now, that's not a good idea, right? Because you're getting gasoline and
Well,
oil
you drain
and
everything
Okay.
first.
All right.
You get all this stuff out first, and then you get down there and you're down there with your little your power hammer trying to get these bolts off that haven't been moved in years.
Oh, yeah.
And sure enough, we got underneath there, and these blades, they look more like crowbars. They were dull, they were bent, they were twisted, and one of them was missing a good inch off the end.
Was this thing wobbling? Like when it went
This thing was like trying to ride a Bronco across the yard.
Yeah.
So we got 3 brand new beautiful blades put on there, and the first phone call I got, a couple of days later was, "Oh my gosh, it rides so great."
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, it's
yay.
smooth now.
So, my other one is we go to a yard, we get it cleaned up, and heaven help these people. They've got one of those really steep drop-offs where like the cut front yards.
Oh, I hate that.
And,
Yeah.
so basically you have to kind of throw a lawnmower
That's
halfway
dangerous.
down it and drag it back up. But we get done with everything, and nobody saw anything. I mean, nobody got hit by anything, but you're hitting tree branches, you're hitting stuff as you're cutting through the yard. And at the end of it, we'll be going back today to replace the bathroom window.
Okay, so all right. So this thing rocketed something and
I think I was watching a Mythbusters episode when they were talking about how hard a lawnmower could fling something like a rock.
yeah.
And basically, it's somewhere between a BB and a .22 bullet.
Wait, so okay.
That blade picks something up, and if it goes hurling, if it goes ricocheting out of there, so a little piece of tree root or a little bit of branch or something obviously got fired out from underneath the lawnmower and managed to make it 5 feet up a wall and pop a window.
You never found what happened? I feel like
No idea. There's no obvious piece of evidence laying there. There's not a rock laying there or anything like that. But if something got tossed up there enough, it'll take it out.
You sure some kid didn't throw a baseball through the window and is blaming you for this?
I don't know that either. That's why we'll be back over today. Now that you mention it, it does look like about the whole size of a baseball.
Okay.
But I don't think there's any baseball playing kids in this little area. But so my cautionary tale is, make sure that you're wearing proper foot protection. Mm-hmm. And I'll always keep up with the eye protection because honestly just don't know. Because when you get into these yards and stuff, even your own yard that you think you know so well, if it's been 3 or 4 months since it's been cut, you don't know what's laying under there.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got little tree branches. You got a friend of mine called and was dying laughing because it was his fault. He goes, "Yeah, I got to go buy a new hose." I said, "What? You didn't check your yard for the hose?" And nah, I had it out a couple of weeks ago and I forgot and left it out.
It'd be tangled in there.
Oh yeah, then he's like, "Yeah, I had to flip everything over and get the hose out of it." And I'm like, "Okay." So this week I thought cautionary tales. If you haven't had to cut your yard quite yet, get out there and go walk it first.
Okay.
And let's make sure the equipment you're using, is in good shape. Make sure the blades aren't bent. Make sure that, your stuff is in good working order.
And in all seriousness, I see this occasionally, and it just ticks me off because I've had small kids don't have your kid out there playing in the yard while you're cutting the grass.
Oh,
You don't know.
no.
I mean,
no.
you don't know what could shoot out of there, or they could get distracted and think this lawnmower is very interesting, or something. And sometimes you see, or even your pets don't have any,
Yeah,
it's more of a
the
serious
things
business
out of
than
the
we
way.
say.
Yeah.
Yep.
There, if you actually look at gardening accidents or lawn care accidents, emergency rooms will be happy to tell you all about the number of nails they've pulled out of people, shrapnel they've pulled out of people, especially if you've got a larger dog.
Right.
They love to dig stuff up, tear stuff up, and chew on things that you wouldn't think they would chew on. And then they're going to leave them, and you're not going to see them until you hear it going through the lawnmower and come sailing out the far side.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Hey, your predicament makes me think of something, though, because you're going to have to replace a window.
Yeah, we're going to
All right.
replace the window.
And this is something, in all the years of replacing windows and working with window glazing, it seems like, okay, so folks, if you don't know what window glazing is, you put the new window in, and then there's like a it's a little thicker than caulk, and it's not quite as gooey. It's just, I guess people know what it is. You put it on, and that stuff, you don't just put it on and then paint over it an hour later. This stuff, literally, it could take at least a month. But Alan, there is no rhyme or reason in my career with window glazing. I've seen window glazing that'll set up in 2 weeks, or I've seen window glazing 3 months later, it's still soft. And what is the deal? Why does window glazing sometimes take so long to cure, and why is there no consistent timeline? I don't know. It's just window glazing always flummoxes me.
I think it just depends on the product that you buy. I think it's gotten a lot better in the last few years. I've seen a couple of the larger companies have started making glazing compound that sets up within a reasonable period of time. I mean, you're not gonna glaze the window in and then, like you said, touch up, paint it this afternoon.
No.
You go back a few weeks later and touch up, paint it, make it match. But I've dealt with that over the years myself. It's just kind of like, you'll be back out by that property 3 months later, and somebody go, nah, it's still tacky.
Yeah. So keep that in mind if you're out there and you promise to replace somebody's window. You're making a return trip somewhere. In 2 or 3 months later, probably.
Yeah, because that glazing compound doesn't set up real fast.
No, but it sounds like this could have been a lot worse, Alan. Nobody was impaled. Nobody,
No, but
no injuries.
But I thought it was a good time to make that, as everybody's getting out the lawnmowers and the weed eaters and that kind of stuff, give it a once over and make sure you're in good working order and you're going to do all this safely.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, hey, you're listening to Tool Talk Radio here at News Talk 98.9 The Roar, Memphis. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about the sounds of home improvement.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan.
Dying tickles.
News Talk 98.9 The Roar of Memphis.
Now, youngsters, that's not always true, so let's watch what Max, that's a very irresponsible rejoiner. And we'll come back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and the shocking and irresponsible Max behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989, especially if you're somebody named Jay and you're out there celebrating. This is National J Day, among other things. It's also National Teflon Day, so we would love to know how you're celebrating that. And I have to believe Jay Hill is probably celebrating by putting roofs on people's houses. That's kind of
he's working.
That's his relaxation, But you know who else takes their job very seriously and is just dedicated to their craft is our good buddy Larry Brown from Brown Refrigeration. The man has been in this business over 40 years. This is technically, I guess you could say he's been in it longer, Alan, because he worked with his father doing HVAC. He's seen, a guy that's seen the evolution of technology, which is probably why it's so important to him because he's always thinking not just of the current technology, but what's coming down the pike. So he's looking ahead 5 or 10 years of where the HVAC business is going. And that's what you need. You need somebody fully engaged because your HVAC system is about the most important system in your home. It requires regular maintenance, not terrible. It's usually preventative maintenance. It's always a good idea to have Brown Refrigeration pay a visit to your house, once or twice a year. Check the system out, clean it. The visit costs next to nothing, and it basically pays for itself by running efficiently. They also are Trane dealers because Trane is at the cutting edge of HVAC technology. And also the Remy Halo system, which basically uses the UV power of the sun to create the cleanest air possible coming out of your air ducts. But also that air is not just passive. This air is actually cleaning every surface that it hits. That is just a great feeling when you walk into a place and there is literally no smell. You're smelling nothing because the air is so clean. And you really feel it when you're in a place where the air is properly conditioned. There's the humidity levels are correct. And that is all because of the finely calibrated HVAC system in that space. So get in touch with Brown Refrigeration. They are the best. They also have financing available, great financing if you need to go that route. So get in touch with them. You can call them at 901-362-1881 or go to their website, brownref.com. All right, Max, I think this is going to be a very unique discussion.
Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
One of my favorite movies of all time. If you're I'm glad you didn't blast that out, Max. But
I actually did. I had the fader up as high as I could.
Okay, but Dumb and Dumber, for my money, the funniest movie ever made, Alan. But okay, Alan, I was talking about this, and you seem to be somewhat interested in this idea. So basically, I was sitting there reflecting on, I'm like, this is something I don't think we talk about enough. In fact, I don't know that we've ever done an in-depth discussion on the sounds really of home improvement and specifically the sounds of tools, and the effect they have. So, some tools are very satisfying, the sound that they make. Some tools are just irritating and almost grating. And I guess the question is, does that play a role in the way we use them or our emotional well-being, I guess you could say, and how have sounds changed? You made a good point off the air that we're going to discuss about the way sound. Well, let's talk about that. That's a good way to kick this off, Alan. The sound of a construction site, just in our lifetime, has changed. You've noticed that
drastically. I mean, I'm trying to go back to one of the very first big job sites I ever worked on. This was about, probably back about 81, 82, somewhere right in there. And wow, the amount of hammering, just incessant pounding, just everywhere you turned from the beginning to the end. I knew exactly how Bill Murray felt in Groundhog Day.
Like if you lived next door or if you lived down the street from where they were building a new construction, it sounded like off-key woodpeckers or something like that. Oh, my gosh.
It was just, you couldn't escape it. And then the ubiquitous handsaw sound.
Oh, yeah.
That got replaced by the high-pitched whine of the circle saw.
Yeah. But, well, it got me thinking about sound. Well, let's talk about a satisfying. I got a whole list of sounds that I can't stand, but the impact driver. I've really, I've come to really appreciate that.
Right.
Okay, I will make this week I was I'm putting up rafters, and sometimes you have your head in between, because rafters, folks, are 16 inches on center apart. If you're running your impact saw and your head is in between there, it echoes pretty unpleasantly. However, It makes a cool sound. It sounds like it's accomplishing something. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like
Well, I have two different
The
experiences.
sound as it's going on and as you're watching what's happening, because I'm putting in pretty big construction screw, 3
Well,
or 4-inch construction
Yeah,
screws.
when you're watching it get something done,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
When you just got somebody over there all right, every tool has a proper use.
Right.
And when you're not using this thing properly, that is probably one of the most aggravating tools out there.
Oh, the worst sound in the world is if somebody's putting it, like they have the little screw head, the little
Yeah.
Phillips head or hex, and it strips like they're not pushing, and it's, that immediately.
Yeah, that will bring you out of a coma if you're
Yeah.
a job site supervisor. Generally, I got to give you this. The sound of the job site, when you know who's on the job and you know what's being done, there is a certain pattern to the sounds. And as Captain Safety over here for the job site,
Yeah.
there are certain sounds that tell me everything's okay.
Yeah.
And there are times where I'm hearing the wrong thing in the wrong place.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like having a 5-year-old. If you walk in, you know you got a 5-year-old and the house is dead quiet, you know you got to go look. Because,
Yeah, that's not natural.
yeah, because
Right.
the 5-year-old has done gotten somebody's lipstick and is now doing his new version of Picasso
Right.
on your freshly painted wall. So I use the sound of a job site as my cue. Do I need to be concerned? Do I need to be somewhere immediately? Or is everybody kind of going okay?
I'm glad you said that because I've been on job sites where you might have. I was on a perfect example. I was on a job site. There was literally guys up on the roof. There was concrete being done.
Right.
And I was framing. Okay, so every kind of thing all at once. And I think it's just basic etiquette to kind of alert people around you. If somebody's up on a 10-foot ladder doing something and concentrating and you're about to run a jackhammer behind them, you better.
Yes.
It's like when you yell for.
Yeah, exactly. You give them a heads up because that stuff could be jarring. I'll tell you one sound, Alan. How about this? Have you ever had the sound of a table saw firing up? Like when you turn it on, that initial.
Yeah, that's a high-pitched grab. Yeah.
And people, you can have a small portable table saw or bench saw on a job site, and I think people need to be alerted when you fire that. It's funny because I'm a woodworker, but I don't really like that sound.
I know you recently lost Old Blue, Joe, but could I ask you a compare and contrast question with regards to that? I'm wondering, because you mentioned the power-up, is it a lot quieter when you power up your cordless electric drill versus Old Blue?
Yeah, the cordless seems quieter, but that's not an unpleasant sound to me. That's
I'm just kind of curious because of like the evolution of the job of the sounds of the job site. If we're going to slowly get quieter and quieter and quieter,
I feel like Old Blue had a bigger motor and it was louder. Yeah, so
He had
Well,
an
we've
attitude.
also gone from brushed to brushless, and that was a drastic sound
that's why we're not
difference.
seeing sparks.
That's
flying
why
out
you
of
don't
that
see the
drill.
big giant sparks flying around the inside of the tool anymore. Things that are really, really satisfying. I like the sound of something tightening in. You got that little
yeah.
and it goes and it just kind of gives you that little wave of just, okay, we're done, stop now.
Right.
And you can always tell the newbies because they on top of the screw,
Right.
Because they're not listening.
Right.
The sound of what you're doing actually tells you a lot about where you are in the cut, how far in the bolt has gone. There's a lot of little cues us old timers take for granted.
It's funny you say that because one of the sounds that I have listed here is a hacksaw on metal when you're not cutting correctly. Like, you know how there's a kind of a
gosh, yes.
when you're cutting it, but if you get that, it's like a high pitched sort of whatever. If you hear that, I'm guessing you're not getting the most effective cut.
You're not
right?
getting
and that's
there.
that's a grating sound.
And
yeah.
here's a question for you. How about sounds that represent an unholy chemistry? Things that shouldn't be, and you know that when you hear it, danger is about to happen.
Oh, very good, Max.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
And we've all heard those.
Yeah, I have, it's kind of like when you've told people turn something off.
Mm-hmm.
So like, all right, we're really going to begin sanding these floors. We're going to kick up a lot of dust.
Yeah.
So I need the fans on and the air conditioning off.
Right.
Because I don't want to suck this stuff through the air conditioning system. And you'll get about 10 minutes into this, Max, and whoever you assigned, you gave them one job.
And you hear that fan go on.
And suddenly you hear, you're like, somebody left the air conditioner on.
I feel like the follow-up, the sequel series to this inquiry is the job site smells.
I think we're going to do that one down the road, Max. But we have more to come, and we're stay tuned because we're going to give you the in our opinion, the number one most satisfying sound. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan.
I'm describing a person, not something complicated like a wooden sailing ship or proper dovetail technique.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
I've never built a wooden sailing ship, Alan, but he's not wrong about the dovetail. Oh my gosh, what a pain those things are. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And there's a lot of good reasons to do so. Today happens to be two holidays that we're celebrating: National Teflon Day and National J Day, which is as basic as you can get. I'd love to know who instituted National J Day. If your name's Jay, I guess you're out there and it's your day.
Was it Jay-Z?
I don't know. It sounds like something he'd do. But if Jay Hill, I hope you're out there celebrating properly. Also, we would love to hear from you here on Tool Talk Radio about the most annoying sounds or the most satisfying sounds you have with tools. It's maybe we don't want to hear that. I don't know if we
It's
qualify.
probably this show.
Yeah. But it's an interesting discussion because we don't often talk about this. In fact, I don't know how often we've ever talked about this. We're talking about how a tool can it can be jarring, or it can be a very satisfying sound, or it could be a premonition of danger to come. We've heard that out. When a sound is off kilter or something, especially on a
three
construction
people
site.
I know that I trust with a chainsaw are all within sight, and now I hear a chainsaw.
Right.
Impending doom has struck. Yes,
and we're gonna throw it out there. So if you have a particular sound that you really enjoy, or that you just can't stand, it's interesting because it could be the same. The same item. Okay, perfect example. My son Jeremy, he works with me sometimes on the job site. He cannot stand the sound of sandpaper. Like if I have to sand something off, he's like, ugh, like it just, and I find it actually it's not a terrible sound. It's, partially, it's kind of just a neutral sound to me, but I'm sure there's people that have that. I guess there's no universal thing. Some sounds people actually may enjoy, but I don't know, man. There's a file, a file on metal. I'll always hate that sound. It's too, that I don't know. Things to do with metal, I always find are
it's a file. I mean, it's it's there.
Before we get to the really ugly ones, Max, what did you say your two favorite ones are?
My two favorite ones were the lathe or like a metal grinder.
Yeah, grinders are cool. Yeah, because for one thing, they kick out sparks. They make you feel whatever. But yeah, and you
very
see
rock video
results
stuff
pretty quick.
Yeah.
I can't argue
They're
with
also
you
very,
there.
very dangerous. Be careful with those things, people. They will take your finger right off.
And remember, if you're using a grinder, that you better have a cup of water or something here, because you're supposed to dip the metal in because that stuff heats up.
Yeah,
when the tip starts turning red, that's not
not good.
Yeah. So, okay. Do you got to, before we get to the number one most irritating and the number one most satisfying, is there anything else, any other?
Well, I think the hum of a motor coming up to speed is very relaxing. Whether it's a lathe.
Depends which one. Yeah.
Yeah, like a lathe, it's got a nice big comforting sound that I'm up to speed of. Bizarrely, and of course you're going to say, of course I do, I have a gym quality stone cutter.
Mm-hmm.
And that when that baby powers up and gets up to speed, it's a very confident sounding motor. It's very, here we go.
Like it's ready to take care of business.
We're ready to cut that rock in half kind of thing.
That makes sense. Okay. A sound that I can't stand is the sound of a router. And I like the results. Routers are great tools, but man, it is. And I find routers a little unnerving because those little blades, folks, boy, if you slip with that thing
Yep.
And you can hear when somebody messes up with a router too.
Big time.
Yeah.
Could I ask you a quick question now that you're
Yeah.
on the subject?
Yeah.
What would you say is the sound of a tool that's the most pretentious?
Oh, a pretentious sounding tool.
Like, oh, look at this guy. He thinks he's all big. I'm a high and mighty because he's using so and so.
That's
right.
interesting.
All right. That is when you have the inexperienced person using a chainsaw. Because experienced people look at how something is lying, especially if you're like cleaning up a tree. And I'm saying this because obviously I just did this not too long ago. And this is one of those things where, when somebody asks you how much you cost,
Yeah.
and I'm like, well, I'm this much per hour, or I'm that much per hour if you want to help.
There you go.
And
Yeah.
I promise you, if you want to help, the price goes way up.
Right.
Because now I have to save you. Because people don't like, so the limb is laying on the ground. The thing you got to look at is which way is that limb going to bend as you cut it?
Right.
So
or
a lot
roll.
of, oh my gosh, a lot of people start right on the top, even though this thing is kind of bounced up off the ground, and it's going to pinch down, and you can just hear that blade crying for mercy, but yet they keep going, and then suddenly you hear that as it just wedges in there. And now you got to go get a different saw to rescue the chainsaw.
I thought you were going to say, for example, like the chainsaw, like someone's like revving it up like there's some big hot shot in the muscle car.
Oh no. Oh, they do that too. Everybody has to do that.
A pretentious sound. Huh.
Yeah.
That's an interesting, because pretension could mean this is a precision instrument or it could just be, this is the loudest instrument and we're dominating the job site or something, or
This is the sound of my luxury tool that I spent $1,000 to purchase.
Oh,
Yeah,
that would be anybody who thinks that a pressure washer is automatically the answer. That is the most pretentious sound I can think of.
What do you think of this, Alan? Because here, when Max said that, the first tool that jumped to mind, and I don't know why, but what is that? The air-powered wrench that they use in auto shops, like
an air wrench.
An
oh
air
my
wrench.
gosh.
Like I don't know why that strikes me as pretentious. Like if you're going by the the garage or something, and you
hear
those
somebody-
things. To me, it just sounds like expensive. I'm like, okay, whatever they're doing right now, they're using. I don't know. Somehow, I feel like I'm going to be spending more money because of that.
Yeah.
So,
You're overkilling something that didn't need to be killed that hard.
yeah. Or this. Okay, so that's going to be my vote, and I don't even know what the basis of that is. So, all right. Well, can we give? I'm going to give my vote for the most annoying sound of all time, and you all are free to chime in with yours. But I think for my money, the gas-powered leaf blower is the most irritating sound. Because, Al, have you ever been on a job site, or have you ever just been in the neighborhood?
Oh,
It's not like you run the leaf blower for 2 minutes and turn it off. These things go, it seems like it's never going to end.
yeah. It's the all-day sound.
2 hours of leaf, and you feel like you're and then when it goes off, you're like, wow, the world is so quiet now. But it's, I don't like that sound at all. That just drives me nuts. In fact, when I lived in California, I thought they had rules against, like you could only use it for certain hours. I think they have that here too. Like you can't be firing up your leaf blower at 5 in the morning, right?
I don't know. I don't know about that. But
Okay, but that's my vote. Does anybody have a more irritating sound than that?
just listening to a blade get bound up is just the most heart-wrenching thing in the world to me.
Like a circular saw.
Well, a
like-
circle saw.
Ooh, that is.
It just as these and it's just because it's such a visceral reaction that obviously you're not doing something right.
Like you're turning the blade, or
And it's just
you're pinching
binding
it,
in, and it's just, oh my gosh.
or you're
it
cutting
just
wet
kills me.
wood, or you're pinching it together.
Yeah. And it just worries me that, now you're going to do something stupid and you're
'Cause
going
it'll
to
kick
yank
back.
it or it's going to kick.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to get cut. Oh,
It is a dangerous saw.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mac.
I was going to say, I do agree with you on the leaf blower thing. it's one of those things where, it's like a war of attrition. It's like, when is this going to finally stop? It's like the neighbor's dog that won't stop barking. But the thing that I was going to say too, perhaps, is when you're using a drill and the screw strips.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's awful. And then especially if somebody doesn't stop. Like if you don't stop after about 1 or 2 seconds, that's yeah.
Well, it's just not listening or paying attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we got a texter in, by the way, with their answer.
All right,
Clint
what's their
says a tile cutter of any type is the most annoying sound.
A tile cutter. Oh.
Yeah, those can be pretty abrasive after a while.
Even a hand power, even just the hand one that you score the edge. I'm not going to disagree with you, Clint. That's a good one.
Yeah, that'll grate on your nerves.
All right, for my money, the most satisfying sound is a socket wrench. What do you think? I love that little the little clickety click. It's I like, as kids, I would hand my son the socket wrench and they would just play with it, and it's a very nice sound.
I would
like
say
the
in terms
socket
of
wrench.
commonplace tools, I would agree with you on that. My money still is on the lathe, and the file is on the metal file, but not the metal file, the metal grinder. But those are very uncommon tools in terms of use throughout the house or whatever.
And I'm sort of partial to the sound of a tape measure too. Good, clean fun. So that's going to be out on the table. If you feel free to weigh in at any point today on the sounds that you enjoy from tools or the sounds you can't stand. Hour 1 of Tool Talk Radio is in the can, you guys, but stay tuned for hour 2.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989, like people have been doing. I guess we'll get to those in just a second, Max. We've got quite a bit on the table today. This in the second hour of the show. We've got our good buddy Jeremy Veldman will be dropping in the show shortly. He's going to join us for a couple of interesting conversations. We're going to talk in our Great Moments in Building History about the world's oldest working planetarium. I mean, he's perfect for that conversation. Also, I'm sure everybody knows coming up Monday, we have the big solar eclipse, and you don't have to go that far if you want to see the entire, if you want to see it full coverage, 100% coverage, which makes a difference, Alan. We're only about an hour's drive from the zone there. He's going to be talking about that. But before the break, we were having kind of a fun conversation about the sounds of tools, the sounds of home improvement and things, and listeners are weighing in, right, Max? So what do they have to say?
First, we got someone simply named Z.
Z, I like
you.
that. Yeah.
They said worst sound is the glass cutter.
Oh, what is the glass? Describe that, Alan. Isn't that?
Oh my gosh, that is.
It's like fingernails on a chalkboard.
That is the ultimate fingernail down a chalkboard sound.
Okay.
It really is.
Can't disagree, Z. That one's
good.
Does
yeah.
it top the leaf blower though? I guess for sheer agony, because it's quick at least.
Yeah, the glass cutter is over in a few seconds. The leaf blower's, 3.5 straight hours. And that's because the person running the leaf blower is having the time of their life.
Well, they have their headphones on.
Yeah, they're just blowing leaves, and they don't care.
Is that going to be like in your personal you-know-what, Joe, whenever you pass away?
I don't know. It's like, but, okay, who else chimed in?
Well, we got Lynn Neal, the real deal, saying air impact driver.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, we know he likes that sound.
Now that's got to be a good sound for him, right?
Oh,
well, that was what I said. Max asked what the most pretentious sound was. When I hear that sound, I think of, I don't know, Formula One racing, or I think of something. The word expensive comes to mind. I'm thinking, okay, you take your car to the shop and you start hearing these. I'm like, okay, this is about to get expensive. But Alan, you had a couple of. I may have to change my voting. You had a couple that you brought up that I think are worthy.
One of them is a
mention.
relatively new invention. Is the little, everybody's got a new 18-volt system these days.
Right.
And everybody has now come out with a little 18-volt portable tire filler.
Yeah.
And they're not
emergencies.
They're not loud and screaming like
I have
the
one.
old ones.
Yeah.
And, you kind of get the instant satisfaction of A, watching your tire inflate, and B, it's just kind of a little humming sound.
Right.
And it's kind of quick, easy, and fun. But I'm going to have to say...
Wait, hold on. I want to comment on that. I think one of the things that's exciting about that, too, is because you can use it to pump up a basketball or a football.
Yeah.
What I find about that is because you have something that's basically useless. You have a flat tire, or if you have a flat, and you are taking something and more or less bringing it back to life. And there's something satisfying about that. So,
Very much so.
Yeah.
However, I'm going to stick with the whole, battery format.
Yep.
So you and I, we work with the tools like all day.
Right.
And at some point, you hear it begin to wind down.
Yeah.
You take the battery out. There is no more satisfying sound in the world than popping that new battery in there.
It makes a click.
Man,
you kind of
there's a
feel like
click.
Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Terminator or something. And
Yeah,
it's
you just reloaded.
because you have a dead battery, suddenly you click that in, and I bet you do the same thing I do, Alan. You take it out of the Sawzall or the drill, and the first thing you do is you hit the trigger and then it's going full speed.
Oh, yeah,
again.
just like that click when you slap that baby in there.
I might have to change my voting and say that might be the most satisfying sound. But
I think
you got
it's
something
also,
else?
I think it's also circumstantial in terms of like the pleasantness or unpleasantness of the sound. But we got an anonymous texter from the 901.
Okay.
They said jigsaw on aluminum.
Okay,
Oh, wow.
that's got to be a irritating
Unpleasant.
sound, right? Okay, jigsaw. Like we said, anything to do with metal because it can get
So
a high pitch
high-pitched.
or you know what else? And I don't know if it's fair. Maybe we're being unfair to metal work, but it's kicking off sparks that are razor sharp and hot, and I don't know, man. But metal against metal, Alan, that is not the most pleasant sound. Although
No.
I will say, back in the day when I was, I used a metal lathe. I think they called it a milling machine or something.
Right.
If you have it just at the right setting, it's pretty cool. Like instead of water to cool it off, they would run oil. Like there was an oil spigot that goes over the blade, and man, if you get a good cut, there's something very satisfying. But one slip and you get that. Yeah. So, well, we're gonna keep that out on the table because apparently we've triggered people, and it is
Send them in.
It is something I don't know that we've ever really examined closely, but the sounds of things make a big difference, and I have to wonder if some of these sounds are by design, like that click of putting the battery in. I have to imagine that the designers thought about that. I mean, I like to think so.
Yeah, I think somebody went, no, we need to make that click louder.
Yeah, make
There you
it cool. So
That kind of makes me think of the Stuka dive bombers in World War II. They intentionally had these like sound effect box on there to like intimidate the opponent as it's about to dive down.
Oh yeah, I mean, like you said, when you're on a job site, there's certain sounds where, for one thing, you might go, okay, this person knows what they're doing, or this person take that away from them. They're going to kill somebody.
Somebody get that tool away from them.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, that's out there. If you still feel free anytime today to chime in and let us know, about the sounds you appreciate at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline, 901-683-0989. And also how you're celebrating National J Day. I'd like to hear from some J's. So, all right. But Max, let's get to our must-have item of the week. Oh, I'm holding it up in the wrong spot.
But how apropos?
And Alan, we don't overlook the obvious here on Tool Talk Radio. Let me unpeel this a little bit so people can see, but I'm holding it up to the camera, so can you tell people what I'm holding up? So.
You are holding up a roll of, and how strangely appropriate, a roll of Teflon tape.
I didn't know that that's what it was called when we picked, because today is National Teflon Day. Max gave us a deep cut on that, but I called it pipe thread tape. It's that thin, you can snap it with your finger. It's that very thin tape. I mean, is it right to even call it tape? It's like this little plasticky film type thing that you put in on pipe threads for plumbing.
Well, when you look at the box when it gets delivered, it says Teflon tape.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's in the little spool. And the idea behind this is to give yourself the ability to close up those threads.
Because you might be, water is going to get out. I mean, water's going to find a way.
Yeah.
But also, these are for gas lines,
Yes.
And but when did I guess I'm wondering how far back this goes, because as a kid, I don't remember seeing this on plumbing or on.
Well, I mean, again, Teflon has been around since basically the early 40s. I think because before this, we used pipe dope or we used plumber's putty.
Yeah.
And we used a lot of that.
Out and
I remember seeing that exact type roll start appearing sometime in the 80s. Now, I'm sure it happened earlier.
Yeah, I feel like that's about when I saw it too, because I paid attention to tools and stuff ever since shop class in the late 70s. But it's amazing what a difference it makes if you're doing your own DIY plumbing. First of all, make sure you know what you're doing, but don't skip this. This costs like what, $2 a roll or something. This stuff is dirt cheap, but what a difference it makes. But Alan, it seems like there's also you got to have the right touch with this stuff. You can't just put don't just if you put too little on, it's not going to do the job. If you put too much on, you might not even be able to put the threading back. You know what I mean? You might not even be able to make the connection.
Yeah, and also I hate to say it, but when we're on job sites, and I work with bigger crews and stuff than you do.
Yeah,
I work with a lot more people than you do on occasion, and I hate to say it, but Teflon tape is kind of how I know whether or not you're telling me the truth.
Okay, talk to me. Like
right.
Whether you actually have plumbing experience.
Whether you actually, well, you don't have to be a plumber, but you look at me and go, yeah, I can do that. Because, all right, it's kind of like.
Don't let the rookie do the.
Well, it's kind of like the paintbrush test. Somebody digs the paintbrush in there to get as much paint as possible. You don't know how to paint.
No.
Makes me think of like during World War II, and it's like, we know who the spy is based on the way they handle such and such.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you do know that we'll get into a discussion about how to eat pie in a little bit.
How that gives away.
That can give away where you're from.
But Teflon tape
right
does
there,
require finesse.
Right.
Yeah.
You want it in the threads, not in the lip.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to put a substance that's not going to break down inside the water flow. You want to make sure this is in the thread only.
I've seen that. I've seen it where it's going to interfere with the water. Yeah.
And, the rookie mistake is put about 8 wraps around it.
Yeah.
You're like, no, you just need a single coating, maybe 2, to get on those threads. Take your fingers, twist it around on it one time and make sure you got it in
Snug
the
it
threads.
in a little bit, yeah.
And then you can thread up easily and get the best benefit out of that tape, which means you're not going to get a drip.
And let me ask you this, because I feel like this tape is sort of a one-use type of thing. In other words, like suppose you're connecting a water line and you go, doggone it, I got to disconnect it because I forgot to do such and such. I think when you take that off, you better remove the tape and then put a new fresh one on, because it's going to shred it up and it's going to make it less effective.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, this stuff is as flimsy as it gets, but it's perfect for the application.
I would not move air, water, or gas without it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, hydraulic line and everything. So, but it's cheap. Keep this in your house. You don't know when you're going to need it. It's not going to spoil. I mean,
it'll be good a year from now.
Yeah.
I forget if you said it, but can you use this on PVC, or is it not necessary?
Again,
threads. If
it's got a thread and you're trying to fill that space, this is a great way of guaranteeing you got it.
Yeah. Okay. Pretty good stuff, and it's cheap. So keep 1 or 2 rolls in your house. So, all right. What an interesting show so far. It's going to continue. We're going to continue this when we get to our great moments in building history here on Tool Talk Radio.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan. News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
I like that sound.
Yeah, speaking of sounds, that's probably not one you want to hear.
No, I hear it too often.
Guess that sound, and you can win a Tool Talk Radio prize pack, I suppose. So, and welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning. We're with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And there's a few things on the table. Feel free at any point, if you want to continue weighing in, people have really responded to our conversation about the sounds of tools, the sounds of home improvement. What are some of the most irritating sounds? What are some of the most satisfying sounds? What are pretentious sounds of tools? I don't know. Max brought that one up. And so far, the winning vote, as far as Alan and I changed my vote. I said the most satisfying sound was a socket wrench, but Alan brought up the clicking of a new battery into your battery powered tool, and I have to agree, that's a pretty cool sound.
It is.
It does remind me of, like, I don't know, RoboCop or the Terminator or something like that, where you click it in and you're ready to take care of business and stuff. So, also today is National Teflon Day and National J Day. They could have picked a better name for it, but I guess that's the the sound of it. If your name is Jay, This is your holiday. Speaking of Jays, it's a perfect time to mention our good buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling. I have to imagine that he's celebrating by working himself to the bone, which is what he does every day of the week. But,
that sounds like Jay.
But Jay, take a few minutes to appreciate your holiday. But you talk about a guy that is committed to his craft. He's all about the exterior protection of your home, from roofing to siding to gutters to windows. We always like to showcase his great roofing expertise. He's a GAF Master Elite Installer. He and his whole team, they're always 5 stars with the Better Business Bureau. The guy's very humble about it, but if you go to the Better Business Bureau, you're going to find the rankings of roofers in the Mid-South. He's right up there. I don't know if he's the top, but he's right near the top of all of that. And there's a reason for that, because he's created a great business culture. When Jay shows up on a job, he brings a real energy. He brings a real optimism to a job, which is, especially with something as serious as your roof, you need that, and it makes it something exciting, and you're excited about the project. Also, Jay has a unique history because he is a former insurance agent, and he's used that skill because there are many times where you may have damage to the outside of your home or to your roof that is covered by your homeowner's insurance. And it's crucial to know whether that's the case. And if so, that's going to save you thousands of dollars when it comes to replacing or repairing your roof. And Jay has that expertise, so he should be the first person you call when you have any roofing issues. His consultation is free. He will let you know if you have a path forward. And also, he has great financing at his disposal as well. He's got 30 lenders that he partners with. You apply, it takes minutes to apply, and you're going to get qualified probably for several of those, and then you choose the terms that work best for you. But we love working with Jay Hill. Like we said, he's just a great guy. He's very passionate about his work, and he just produces such a great results. So call Jay directly. You can reach him at 901-484-5645 or go to bigmroofingandremodeling.com. So, Alan, I guess, I guess we better move on from our sound conversation.
Okay.
But let's get to our great moments in building history. Max. Okay, here we go.
And now, great moments in building history.
And
it caught me off guard.
And yes, I did it again, Alan. I did the double introduction. So, well, I should just point at Max, but whatever. So, well, Jeremy should be here shortly, I hope. But in honor of Jeremy Veldman and in honor of the huge, I mean, really, this is a big. The eclipse coming Monday is very unique because it's going across a pretty good chunk of the United States. It's starting down in Mexico. It's traveling north. And so in honor of that, we thought, why not showcase something, something to do with space. And with a little research, we found that the oldest, it still works too, the oldest working planetarium was built in 1781 by a man named Eisinga. I guess I pronounced it right, over in Holland, Alan. And this is an interesting thing. This is pre-electricity. Well, at least, this thing is not powered by electricity.
No.
This thing is, but who wants to jump in first on this? Because it's not huge. The guy built it at his house. So.
Well, all right. Well, let's start with Mr. Eisinga's career,
Okay.
he was a wool carder.
What is that? I mean, I think I can guess. But processed wool.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is during the beginning of the manufacturing revolutions, and he used great big machinery. But the reason I bring that up is the reason it's important is that it's all very precise.
Oh, this guy's all about, because this.
Bingo. He
Yeah,
is
this
all
is
about,
precision.
the precision of the mill lining up the fibers to pull the wool so they can make clothing.
Yeah.
These are not small machines.
Right.
So, I'm sitting here and when you brought this topic up, I was like, yeah, I remember this. I remember reading about this years ago. But it was kind of like, all right, I want to take a little deeper dive into the guy here because he built a planetarium. Very precise clockwork motion. Was this guy like a watchmaker or?
That's
and
true.
then I read, I was like, oh, he's a wool carder.
Yeah.
So he's used to big, huge machines that could maim you.
Yeah.
So precision was part of this guy's life.
And what's interesting about him, too, is the ways that he learned about astronomy were through his father, who had an interest in astronomy, and through a guy who he learned knowledge of, like, mathematics and such, who was also a wool dyer as well. But what's also fascinating is the fact is he dropped out of school at the age of 12.
Oh, so this is a hands-on kind of guy, because he's an expert mathematician too. I mean,
Right.
I guess back in the day, you apprenticed, you learned a trade early, and I guess going to school was actually more of a the higher education was more of an elite thing, right? You didn't necessarily.
Well, yeah. And so this guy is working on and working with very precise mechanical setups.
Right.
He's got a good background in math. He's got a fascination with the heavens. So now when you see a picture of this, you go online, you look and see a picture of it. Remember, this would have been a pretty impressive house in 1780.
Yeah, no
I
kidding.
mean, this is not, is it a huge building? No. Is it what you would think of as a planetarium? No.
Well,
but if you think of this as some guy's house,
right.
he was doing okay.
Yeah, so if you want to envision, there's a big open room, and it's not, well, actually, I say big, it's I don't know. It looks to me like it's probably about 20 feet by 30 feet across, something like that.
The visuals of it, if you're trying to think of something from pop culture, it makes me think of the opening theme of Game of Thrones.
Oh, I never saw that, so I don't know. But but basically, it's a big open room that's painted blue, and in the ceiling there are basically, you have the sun hanging. It's a little model of the sun. Then you have Mercury, and now keep in mind they hadn't discovered Uranus at this point.
No.
Actually, they discovered Uranus a year after he finished this. It took 7 years to build this, but these are not just sitting there glued to the ceiling. These things, there are round tracks in the ceiling, and he calculated the orbits to make these move in season like they're supposed to, and it's powered, like I said, not by electricity. It's like a pendulum clock.
Exactly. So,
and I mean, that is some serious precision, man.
He has 9 pawns on this thing, and I think the 9 pendulums, right?
Yeah.
So each level of this is run very precise clockwork.
Yeah.
Which, in a strange way, it reminded me of the Tower of London, the clock, Big Ben.
Oh, is that how
because
they do it?
It is, Big Ben is so precise, they adjust the time with pennies.
Really? Oh, like they put a weight of the penny
actual
in?
timing mechanism that swings back and forth, the actual set that keeps it on time. There's a stack of pennies from about 200 years ago,
right,
sitting there, and you add a penny or take a penny away, a lot having to do with temperature, so that the clock constantly remains on time. And that is the exact clockwork type technology that you're looking at in this guy's ceiling.
Pretty incredible. The guy's an amateur. I mean, how many, amateurs have contributed to the world of astronomy? So, all right, very cool stuff. So, and there's a lot more to unpack, and we're going to do that when we come back here on Tool Talk Radio.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan.
The Emperor does not share your optimistic appraisal of the situation, and he is most displeased with your apparent lack of progress.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Yeah, I guess speaking of astronomical things, how could we not think of Star Wars? So anyway, welcome back to and the Emperor. He does he does share. He wears his heart on his sleeve. I'll tell you that. You always know what he's thinking,
or lack thereof.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And there's a lot of good reasons to do that. Alan, for one thing, today is National J Day. Today is also National Teflon Day. But also, we've been getting some interesting feedback about our conversation earlier when we were talking about the sounds of, home improvement and sounds of tools. So if you want to weigh in on that, then feel free. But, Alan, in a minute, we're going to get back to our conversation about basically the world's oldest planetarium. But before we do that, sometimes we fail to plug our own stuff, and there's been a lot happening with Dark Oak Media recently.
We've been pretty busy. That's true. Of course, the biggest thing going on right now has been us and Geek Tank Radio getting quite a bit of play on the podcast side of the world. So I would like to add that, Joe, we have a new country.
Oh, good. Okay.
We have made it to Finland.
Finland. Now, what is that? What does Finnish sound like? So
I have no idea.
Okay.
I'm not sure how well we translate to Finnish, but I noticed in the countries, of course, we have, Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand. We pop up periodically usually where there's a good military base.
Oh, yeah.
But,
yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah,
so,
but,
right.
Finland made a quick appearance this week, and I was like, wow. I figured that was worth mentioning.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, yeah, and I mean, you've got years of content that you can listen to. So, I mean,
they can just pop over to tooltalkradio.com and be they can literally exploit years of back content. And the fun thing is we kind of hold up.
Yeah. No, it's
fun. That's the fun part.
Check it out and enjoy years of content, as we said. So, all right. Hey, Jeremy's finally here. Jeremy, I'm not used to you being late. No, not to our buddy Jeremy Veldman from the Memphis Astronomical Society is here. Perfect time for you to drop in, Jeremy. Apparently, there's something going on Monday. Is that right?
Well, you don't want to be late on Monday, that's for sure. So hopefully this is not a trend. But yes, we got a rare astronomical event. Probably most people have heard about it. Total solar eclipse coming to the United States. This Monday, April 8, only 2 days away.
Yeah. So a little later in the show, Jeremy's going to give us some tips because, I mean, technically, I don't know that that's home improvement. We don't care. This is it's going to be 20 years before this type of thing happens for us again. So, but before the break, we were really having it's an interesting construction. We were talking about the world's oldest planetarium. So, Jeremy, the Eisinga Planetarium, built in 1781 by basically an amateur astronomer. The guy built it in his living room. It's a working model of a planetarium. And this is interesting because he constructed it it's kind of a scale model. But this was constructed before Uranus was discovered. So he had to. They said, well, if I want to make this accurate, I'm going to have to set up the orbit about 5 blocks away from here. So he just skipped that. But what was the state of astronomy in 1781? I guess what was our technology? What was the level of understanding back then? And,
yeah, I wonder if that planetarium had a projector in it. I'm guessing not.
Probably not. Yeah.
You said 1781. I think that's around the time that William Herschel discovered Uranus.
No, it was. This was literally a year before. He finished constructing it a year before. Which threw off his calculations. So, but
fascinating that it corresponds with that period of time, because if you go back thousands of years, there were basically 5 classical planets, right? You know, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. And then 1781, 82, right around that time, William Herschel discovers the first planet outside of the view of the naked eye. This is the first planet discovered with a telescope. So it was kind of a watershed moment, if you will, for astronomy, as the technology was reaching a point where we could go further and see further and kind of expand our knowledge of the universe, so to speak. So it would be fascinating to visit that planetarium. I certainly got to read up more on it, but yeah, what do you do in a planetarium? You know, what can you display, so to speak? It had a dome, of course, and then but as far as what you could display optically inside of a planetarium like that at that time.
It's small. I mean, the guy literally built it in his living room. It's probably, it's a decent size living. If I had to judge, I thought the room looked to me about 20 feet by 30 feet across, but he's got them hanging from the ceiling. What we were marveling at, Jeremy, was the fact that these rotate. There's so if you can imagine circular grooves in the ceiling. The guy, you said he was a wool something. He worked with very precise.
Carter, right?
It took him 7 years to make this, and this all works by pendulum. There's no electricity, and it's fairly precise. They changed the calendar. I mean, this is a functioning planetarium.
Well, there's a few things that are a little hinky just because of the time. All right, the first thing I want to point out is he sacrificed the room above the living room.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
So he went to the third story. He went way up above everything and got up there, and that is where all the mechanical works are.
Mm-hmm.
So he gave and my DIY advice here is this is a great example of, and I go through this constantly, is people first DIY jobs.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is when you're getting ready to, and I'll pick on a friend of mine's garden. They went in a couple of years ago, put in this great big huge garden that was utterly and completely unusable.
Oh, right. Yeah, you got to think about function.
Laid out terrible, and it wasn't person friendly. It looked great when you took the pictures of it, but 2 years later, we literally tore it all out and remade it a lot less fancy, but a lot more human friendly.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to make his planetarium work, and because of his experience working with big, precise machinery, he gave himself enough room to get up there and set up these mechanisms in a way so that they were easy for him to take care of.
Maintenance friendly. Yeah.
Maintenance friendly, so stuff is going to wear out. Things need to be changed. When you see a picture of the mechanical room, I wanted to cheer because he left himself walking room and repair room.
Yeah.
And every 4 years, they have to slightly reset the machine for leap year.
Mm-hmm.
And every 22 years, they have to replace the placard that clicks up and shows you what year it is.
Right.
Because he only had so much room.
Yeah, which they still do to this day.
And they also had to replace the type of metal that's used in it because the mechanical work is very the metal that's used for that work is very temperature dependent,
Yes.
It's not resistant. But the thing is what was nice is in his quote unquote will, in the stuff that we inherited from him in his notebooks, he actually gives very specific directions to those who will be using the museum in the future.
Well, and the other thing, you made me think of something, Jeremy, because you said this was a watershed moment. I didn't realize it was such a watershed moment, but it makes sense then because the King William I, became very interested, and he visited this guy's house, and he was so impressed. He made this. Now, this is, as small as this thing is, it's considered a royal planetarium.
Right.
You know, and you think it's because of all the hype going on with the discovery of Uranus.
What
or
a
something.
visionary this guy must have been to build a planetarium or to envision the concept of a planetarium, whether it's in a small building like an individual person's house, or maybe he had a grander vision of what we currently have today. But if you take a step back in astronomy, go back just to maybe a couple of decades earlier, mid 18th century, it was sort of a golden time for telescope makers. People figured out. You go back a century earlier, it was Isaac Newton who really figured out the fundamentals of optics, and that you didn't need lenses. You could build telescopes with mirrors.
Right.
And so then you get into this period of time, mid-1700s, where people could build bigger mirrors fairly cheaply, gather more light, and see further. And now you've got that corresponding, with this particular planetarium. So astronomy was starting to move forward.
Yeah, people. Well, here and what sort of spearheaded his whole thing was there was some kind of firebrand preacher out there that was basically, what do you call that, Jeremy? When all the planets line up, So there was five. I think there was the moon. There was 4 or 5 planets lined up. What was it?
Right. Well, it's a planetary alignment. When they all line up, like we had a couple years ago. But if you have a couple planets lining up, like we did in 21 with Jupiter and Saturn, that's a conjunction.
Okay, a conjunction. And so this guy was he put out a book. This guy was making he basically said that this signified the end of the world. He said these things were going to collide. This was Armageddon, and this guy Eisinga was showing, no, let me demonstrate actually how the solar system works. So,
and I wanted to say, too, that the date that book was published, the whole end of the world is coming, was 250 years ago to this month.
Oh, and that's something. So he, as a reaction to that, he was actually demonstrating. And I think, it became a place where he threw the doors open to visitors. He wanted people to see it, and it's interactive. It's cool. I mean, to this day, they're still using it, and it worked. I mean, Alan, I don't build things that I think are going to last 250 years. I mean, could you imagine building something with this level of technology and 250 years later, it's still working? Pretty impressive.
Well, they didn't skimp corners is the big thing. You had to use the good stuff.
He built it right.
Right.
We'll have a few parting thoughts about that, and then we're going to visit with our buddy Jeremy Veldman and get some tips on catching the eclipse coming up Monday.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan.
Pay the price for your lack of vision.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Yeah. You know how you say construction sites, there's a theme for the week? I guess we know Max's theme. All right. A little heavy-handed with the Palpatine references, Max. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com, our pal Max over there behind the glass, and our special guest, Jeremy Veldman, president of the Memphis Astronomical Society. There's just enough time to give us a quick call or text at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling hotline at 901-683-0989. You said somebody chimed in, Max. What did they have to say?
Well, it's related to our discussion on the Eisinga Planetarium. They said, Norman here, think about the construction back then of a 20 by 30 room supporting the weight of his planetarium.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out because that's a good point. When you look at it, there's a basically group. There's a slot, a round slot for each of the planets to rotate through. Well, what happened to the rafters? What do this Eisinga sure knew how to, he understood construction. I mean, he built something as an amateur that's still standing 240 years later. So the guy, he knew his stuff. So, But Jeremy, you were talking, it's interesting because back in the day, it's interesting how astronomy has evolved in our understanding of the planets. And you said this was a pivotal time because they just discovered Uranus that reignited an interest in astronomy. But there's some pivotal, what do you call epochs, you could say, in astronomy.
Oh yeah, there are definitely moments when you look back on the history of astronomy that are changing, and maybe at the time we didn't quite understand it until we look back now. Obviously, William and Carolyn Herschel did revolutionary work with not only the discovery of Uranus, but creating the first map of the galaxy. It wasn't 100% correct, but we understood now that we're basically floating on a disk of stars.
Right.
And then going forward 1 century later, what's interesting is, okay, we have this, you talk about this planetarium. They had an understanding of Kepler's laws of planetary motion and then also Newtonian gravity. And now you're modeling that so people can sort of understand how our solar system works. Now you go forward to the mid-19th century, first time that a planet was discovered, not observationally, but by implementing Newton's laws of gravity. You're looking at the orbit of Uranus, and something is tugging on it. So Urban Le Verrier is basically saying, okay, look here, astronomers, and there should be a planet. And bam, there was Neptune.
Isn't that something? So by deduction,
by first
really
principles.
Brilliant.
It's one thing to discover something observationally. It's another thing to discover something by first principles, by basically sitting down and writing a bunch of stuff on a piece of paper, which we know are mathematical equations, and saying, okay, based on this, we should see this here, and I'll go look for it.
Yeah.
And there's planet Neptune.
Pretty interesting stuff. So, but folks, this is an interesting study. Like we said, it is not a big construction, but it is a fascinating construction. So go down the rabbit hole, get on YouTube, get on the internet, and check out the Eisinga Planetarium. It's definitely worth a visit. So, well, Jeremy, okay, coming up Monday, we've been waiting for ever since the last eclipse 7 years ago. I've been waiting because we were a little further away from the full coverage, but now we're only about an hour's drive from the path of is it the totality?
Path of totality, correct. So we're in Memphis. We get 97.6% here. And, of course, the main pitch is if you can put forth a little effort to go just a little further west, Jonesboro, Arkansas is in the path 100%.
Right.
Experientially, it's literally the difference between day and night.
So what is it? Because some people might say, well, 90-something% is good enough for me. But what is the difference between a full eclipse and the
right? So during totality, the corona comes out. It's about as bright as a full moon. The sun is 1,000,000 times brighter than the corona during daylight hours. So even at 97.6%, you're basically looking at a sun that's 24,000 times brighter than it would be during totality. So you miss out on everything. You miss out on diamond rings, shadow bands, Bailey's beads, the corona, the 360-degree sunset around the horizon, all the amazing effects that people just marvel at during a total eclipse. Not going to happen here in Memphis. That's why we're saying get into the path of totality.
Wait, a 360-degree sun. So it looks like the sun setting with that golden glow.
Yep.
But and don't the animals freak out too? Like
again,
you
during
start
totality,
hearing sounds.
Right. If you're near a field where you've got cows, crickets, whatever, you'll see those changes. You'll hear the crickets chirping. You'll see the animals starting to bed because they don't know what's going on. They start to bed down as if it was evening time. If birds are flying, they'll flock and nest. So it's a fascinating experience. Most people, of course, they're not necessarily around animals; they're around other people. But if you happen to be in a remote spot where you're surrounded by wildlife,
right,
it is eerie.
Well, that was going to be my question because it's funny. There's a particular big box store that I go to sometimes. If you're there at sunset, it's a parking lot, but you get a great view of the sky. What are you partial to? Like, where do you want to land because I know you're going to be going wherever the weather cooperates, right? But what's your favorite environment to watch an eclipse? Because this isn't your first rodeo, so.
Right. In a perfect world, I want to be flat. If farmland or flat land as far away from trees and buildings as I can, because then I can get the full effect of the sky. And of course, that 360-degree sunset is amazing. And then also, obviously I want a shot at the corona, but the more sky you have, you're going to see some of the brighter planets come out. Like you'll see Venus, you'll see Jupiter, you'll see Mars, possibly Saturn. So literally the solar system comes out during a total eclipse because you see that we're part of a plane of planets, if you will, that are riding along the disk, the plane of the ecliptic. So the solar eclipse is it's really a fascinating moment where you kind of see where we are in the context of the solar system.
They say that it's life-changing. There's some people, I'm sure they're traveling international. They'll fly here from Australia if they have to see an eclipse, right? They're, what do they call it, eclipse hunters or something? But,
yeah, eclipse chasers, umbrophiles, because the moon's deep shadow is called an umbra. So, they'll chase it all over the world for just a couple minutes.
So how long will it be fully, because you said, too, I know we have to protect our eyes. However, when the full totality happens, you can actually take your glasses off, right?
Right. The further you can get to the center line, the better. So if you can get to spots like Hardy, Arkansas, Russellville, Morrilton, Arkansas, if you're going straight west, if you go north to Cape Girardeau, you'll get over 4 minutes of duration during totality. That's pretty good For
That's
the one
not
we
that
had
far
in
away.
17,
It's a few
yeah,
hours
yeah.
away. Yeah.
Well, the thing I want to throw in is for anybody that hasn't looked at the pictures or hasn't explored this, the moment of true totality, the sky is going to be nothing like anything you've ever seen. It is we've all read the accounts through history when an eclipse happened and the world lost its mind or the battle stopped or whichever event you want to look at in history. The sky is so utterly different.
Right.
Because you don't, because we are creatures, we are a diurnal creature. We're all about the daylight. And now suddenly you are under just a completely different setting. And when you get like Village Creek State Park or you get away from light pollution, this sky is totally different than anything the average city-dwelling person has ever experienced. Yeah. And I just want to throw that in because it's not just the sun, it's not just the moon, it's not the ring of fire, it's not all of the other effects. It is also the Milky Way that just pops up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
And Jeremy's nodding like, yeah, Alan's seen one. It is a real shocker, just boom, how much the universe lights up for this about 2 minutes.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And then everything kind of starts to fade off.
So Jeremy, you're the president of the Memphis Astronomical Society, and this is the thing. You all have regular meetings. I would highly encourage people to get involved. I love your meetings, and you're always learning something new. So how do people learn more about the Memphis Astronomical Society?
Our website's memphisastro.org. That's probably the best way to find us. We have a join button where you can get on our email list or become a full-fledged member. We're on Facebook also. We have a Facebook group and a YouTube channel at Memphis Astron Society. Our meetings are recorded as well as other events.
And also, it's free. I should say it's free. They provide great snacks. Also, you're out in the community doing things. You always have these Skywatch what do you call them? Skywatches or
star parties, observing events. It's a combination of dark sky stuff if you want to get away from city light, but we do events at Bobby Lanier Farm Park. We're doing events at Hinton Park and Collierville now, including telescope mentoring.
Right.
So we're trying to expand our scope of services.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody, I hope you're going to get out there and check out the eclipse. Let's hope the weather cooperates. So,
yeah.
All right. The time's not cooperating, Alan. The clock's telling us it's time to get out of here. So on behalf of my buddy Alan Gilbreth and our pal Max over there behind the glass and Jeremy Veldman with the Memphis Astronomical Society, I'm Joe Thordarson. Thanks for listening to Tool Talk Radio, and we'll see you next week.